Good Sunday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Southern Oregon Weather Weekend Update. We'll start with some current observations and then talk about what we can expect for the rest of the week. Finally, we'll discuss whether we'll finally see a long-awaited pattern change in March. Will March truly come in like a lion, or will we continue to see lamb-like weather, much like we've seen over the past several weeks? Let's take a look at the current radar from the KMAX on top of Mount Ashland. There's not a lot going on in our area, but north of the Umpqua Divide, from about Crater Lake northward, there's some showers moving in through Roseburg into the Central Oregon area, and we see most of the shower activity once again from Crater Lake north. Northern Oregon Cascades, Washington Cascades are getting a healthy amount of snow, but the system is really brushing by our area to the north and east. There was a trace of snow on Mount Ashland this morning, but nothing more than about half an inch. So here on the left you can see one of the high-resolution models, the WRF, showing the system once again moving into northern Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, but leaving us fairly dry. And here's the snowfall amounts from that same model, roughly 6 to 12 inches for the Oregon Cascades from Central Oregon northward, and up to 20 inches and maybe even 2 feet on the high end for the Washington Cascades. So after the system moves through, we're going to see a return to warm and dry weather. It'll really start to feel like spring toward the end of the week, especially getting into Thursday and getting into your Friday. Highs near 70 for Medford, according to the Weather Channel. Here on the upper left-hand corner, you see the EPS, that's the European Ensemble, one of the models that the Weather Channel uses in their algorithm, showing these orange and red colors over Oregon. That indicates upper-level ridging, a warm and dry air mass, and that's really going to block any storminess coming through the Gulf of Alaska. And it'll force those storms to ride up and over the ridge and drop down into the central United States. So the east is going to see some cooler weather for a while, but we are going to sit pretty high and dry for the remainder of the week. However, by Sunday, Saturday afternoon and into Sunday, the European ensembles want to bring a weak system onshore from the Pacific, indicated by these white and these blue colors here. This broad trough moving into the west coast. You see the ridge shifting into the Gulf of Alaska. These orange and red colors here, allowing this storm, this trough, to drop down the backside into Oregon. On the right, the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, also shows this system. This is their precipitation forecast for days 6 and 7, so the weekend. So these dark green colors mean roughly a half inch of liquid, which would equate to 5 or 6 inches of snow for the Cascades and Siskiyous. And then the darker blue and lighter blue colors, those are around an inch to 2 inches of precipitation. So at this point, the system is certainly looking more robust than the one that we're seeing now. However, what we've seen over and over again over the past couple weeks is the models have shown a relatively robust system a week out, even up to 3 or 4 days out, and then it's trended weaker and weaker as we get closer to the actual event. So we'll see if this trend for this system holds on the models. After that system moves through, here's a look at our week 2 period at 14 to 16 days on the GEFS, the American ensembles, and then the GEPS, the Canadian ensembles. Both ensemble models want to bring more cold and storminess into the western United States. See this ridge shifting even further west, south of the Aleutians, allowing more cold and storminess to move into the west coast. Once again, this is a pattern that the models have been hinting at for a while now, and it hasn't fully materialized. That ridge has just been sitting a little bit closer to the coast than they've indicated, forcing the storms into the Rockies. So will the models be right this time? Well, there's a chance that because of the shortening of the wavelengths in the spring, that things will finally change in March, and there's some other indicators that the models may actually be catching on to a legitimate pattern change this time. First of all, here's the Japanese model, and it's also showing the same thing for the week 2, week 3 period. Here on the left, you see the week 2 period, all these blue colors, again indicating cooler and wetter conditions, and then weeks 3 and 4 are shown on the right, and the Japanese model just maintains this pattern for much of the month of March. So here's the forecast for the Madden-Julian Oscillation. Once again, that's areas of storminess, of convective activity moving across the Indian Ocean. We talked about how important that is for our weather in some previous episodes, but here's the forecast from the Australian model, the Bureau of Meteorology for Australia. The green line indicates where the MJO is going to go, and all these dots are one-day increments. So you can see for the next 20 days or so, it remains within this circle, and that once again is the null phase. In this phase, the Madden-Julian Oscillation doesn't really have a lot of impact on our weather, so the MJO is definitely not going to counteract the return to storminess that some of these other models are showing. There's also what's called the Pacific North American Index. This is another one of these oscillations that are pretty big weather drivers for our area. You can see it's forecasted to go from positive, these red bars, into negative, these blue bars, by around day 7 and day 10. On the right here, you see the correlation between surface air temperatures over Oregon in March and the PNA. So these orange and yellow colors do not mean warmer air temperatures. They simply mean that the correlation between the PNA and air temperatures is strong. So where we see these yellow colors and these orange colors, that means that air temperature over Oregon will track what the PNA is doing. If the PNA falls, then air temperatures will likely fall below normal as well. You can see the correlation for southern Oregon isn't quite as strong, but there is a fair correlation here for the month of March. So the PNA gives us an indication that the models may be hinting at a final return to storminess and wetter conditions. So, to recap what we talked about, we have our current system just brushing by us to the north and east. We can expect dry, sunny, and warming conditions until the weekend, a real taste of spring. We have moderate confidence in weekend storminess, but once again, just like last week, it could be a situation where the models are showing a pretty healthy system, and then as we get closer, that system gradually gets weaker and weaker on the computer model runs. So we'll see if that trend holds in our midweek update. However, shortening wavelengths during the spring may finally put us into a negative PNA pattern and lead to a return to storminess in March, despite some of the warmer signals that I talked about a few days ago, the warm Nino 4 region. You can look at the last midweek update from a few days ago for more information on that. So at this point, it does look like March could indeed come in like a lion. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to set your notifications to receive that midweek update in a few days. And please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.